Hey there, Duke fans. Welcome to DBR Bites, episode number 152. It is the day after we learned where Duke will be in the NCAA tournament, who they will play. And because we know who they're playing, we are going to preview that game right here. I am Donald Wine. I'm your host for this episode. I have Jason Evans with me. Jason, it might be you by the end of this show because as we speak right now, we are getting the storm of the century that we thought we were getting earlier today, but we never did. I guess the rain said better late than never. Let's hope we can get through the show with me because I have the recording. So hopefully I'll be able to speak with you this whole time.
Yeah, weather a little bit crazy. Here in Atlanta, by the way, like over the weekend, it was like almost 80, gorgeous weather. Went outside today and like it's in the 40s and it's going down to the 20s. It's just 24 hours, actually, what is it they say? If you don't like the weather in Atlanta, wait 5 minutes, it'll be different.
I'm about to say that's some Michigan stuff. But I mean, last week we had at 5 p.m. on Tuesday last week, it was 87 degrees here. At 5 a.m. on Wednesday morning, it was 30 degrees. And by noon, we were getting an inch and a half of snow. That has been the weather the last week here in the DMV. But luckily, you at home only get to listen to the weather. Hopefully you don't hear the pitter-patter of lightning and thunder against my window. But we are here to preview the game against the Siena Saints. That game will be at roughly 2:50 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday afternoon. It will be on CBS. That means we get Ian Eagle, Grant Hill, Bill Rafferty, and Tracy Wolfson on the call. I think that is stellar. That's why we love the tournament. Those guys are the best. This game will be at Greenville, South Carolina. Of course, that will be the host of this pod for Duke. And Jason, let's start generally with, we had 24 hours to think about this. Are we feeling any better about this tournament, or we might still be a little upset at the road that has been paid for us? But are we ready to go ahead and play the basketball, or are we still a little miffed?
Yes, of course we're ready to play the games. I spent a lot of time today, and I know you did as well, like watching YouTube clips, watching game replays, tape on Siena. This is one of the most important previews that we do all year. Even if it's a 16 seed, you treat them with full respect. I'm ready for the games we played. I'm still upset at some of the seeding stuff. I think that the committee did a poor job in a number of different places, and that poor job makes Duke's road more difficult in all likelihood. Look, you never know, what's going to happen. I want to say, gosh, I think it was 99. It was the 99 team where Duke managed to make the Final Four. They played a 16. I want to say they played an 8 or a 9. They then played like a maybe it was like a 11 or a 12, I think it was a 12. And then they played like a 7 or something like that. Like it wasn't when the bracket was announced, the way the region looked kind of scary. And then the way it played out was super, not that any game is easy. And look, when a team gets on a run, blah, 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 on and on. But sometimes you get a really great team. Sometimes you get St. Peter's in the grade 8 or something like that. So
yeah. And sometimes St. Peter's beats you. That's the magic of this tournament. But like you said, this is the part we start to take things even more seriously than we did before, because we don't want to lose again, because losing ends the season, and we do not want the season to end before the first Monday in April in Indianapolis. But to get there, we have to get through the Siena Saints. So let's start by previewing them. This team out of the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, or the MAAC as they call it, 20-11 on the year, 13-7. They were third in the conference. And Jason, they played a lot of teams this year in the 200s and 300s of KenPom. They did not play a lot of good teams. And normally teams like this maybe have like a few games against, some of those bye games against some of the top 50 in KenPom. Well, they only had one team that they saw that was in the top 100. That was Indiana back on December 22nd. They lost by 21 to them. They only played two teams that are 100 to 200 in KenPom. In one of those teams, they faced 3 times. They lost to St. Bonaventure, and they played Merrimack 3 times, including they lost twice during the regular season, but managed to beat the number 1 seed Merrimack in the conference final to punch their ticket to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, the thing about their schedule, like you said, they're 0-1 in quad one. They haven't played a single quad two game. Like their entire schedule, other than that game at Indiana, is quad three and quad four kind of games. And in fact, against quad three, they're just 2-6. I mean, my goodness, Donald, this is their schedule ranks 347th out of, I believe it's 362 teams in college basketball. We're talking about one of the 15 or so worst schedules in all of college basketball, according to Ken Pomeroy. And it makes everything about evaluating them like a little more difficult, because the truth is, other than that one game against Indiana, which was back, I want to say, was it November? It
was December 22nd.
Early December. Okay. Other than that one game at Indiana, they haven't even played a team the quality of like a BC or something like that. It's, no insult to BC, but I mean, they have not faced teams that are anything like the Duke Blue Devils.
I mean, the closest that you get to BC was their loss to St. Bonaventure. That was closer to the beginning of the year. That was on November 12th. But yeah, again, a team that sometimes, from this league, I mean, we played Niagara, who was in the MAAC, right? Of course, Greg Paulus is there. So we were able to play a couple of these teams. A lot of these teams get those bye games, not Siena. And they didn't get that. But you have to get there by winning, right? You can't. This is a team that gets the NCAA tournament by going on a run. And they're on a 4-game winning streak, including 3 straight in the MAAC tournament, to win it all. They beat Mount St. Mary's in the quarterfinals, 63-58. They then beat Fairfield 76-61, both of them avenging losses to a team that they lost to earlier in the season. And in Merrimack, again, a team they lost to twice, who was the number 1 seed. They beat them by 10. Jason, watching that game, they started out up 24-9. Merrimack played a lot of zone, and we'll talk about why that was significant, because they would think that would be the way to beat them. But they were at least on that particular night, were able to shoot over them and make a couple of shots and make it where they kind of had to stretch that zone out quite a bit. And somehow they were able to take a lead. And even though Merrimack had some chances to kind of creep back into it, they kind of held them at arm's length most of this game, ended up winning by 10. But Jason, as we get to this team, there's one guy that I want you to talk about, and you can use that to kind of go into the metrics. We mentioned him on the last show, Gerry McNamara, the Syracuse legend, who is the head coach of this team. And again, as I mentioned last night on the bracket show, this is an interesting kind of development for him. Funny enough, Jason, if you watch this game, the MAAC final, all they talked about coming out of commercial breaks was Duke, because they were talking about the ACC tournament coming up, and they're like, and Duke is the 1 seed. And I was like, wow, they just had no clue. They maybe just burned this into the committee's memory. They said, Duke, Siena, just put them together. But Gerry McNamara is one of those guys who obviously is a Syracuse legend and could be the next head coach of Syracuse. He is one of the front runners for that job. So talk to me a little bit about Gerry Mac and the legend that he is, both for Syracuse and for Siena.
Yeah, I mean, this guy, his number is retired. I mean, Syracuse is a school that's had a lot of legendary players. Gerry McNamara's number 3 hangs in the rafters at Syracuse. He started every single game he played there. 135 games, 135 starts in his career. And he averaged like better than 35, 36 minutes per game over his career, like from freshman year. And by the way, he was a freshman alongside Carmelo Anthony. Like, he was the point guard. Melo led that team to the title, but they had a freshman point guard playing 35, 36 minutes per game, and it was Gerry McNamara. Donald, I'm not sure how well you remember him. Dude was a lethal shooter, no conscience, but also a really nice passer, like averaged close to 5 assists per game over his career at Syracuse. After he got done at Syracuse, he played a few years in Europe, not terribly successfully.
Wait, real quick before you do that, you glossed over when he became the actual legend, and that was that Big East tournament, that game against Georgetown, where he had the buzzer beater, and then the game later on where I think they went 7 overtimes against UConn.
That game is just absolute legend. Yeah.
Man was a legend in the Big East tournament, and that particular one was astounding. That is part of the reason why his name is in the rafters, his numbers in the rafters, is because of the legend that he created through that particular stretch of play.
Right, and I wanted to mention that he played his pro career Didn't last very long. I want to say it was like 3, maybe 4 years. Played a little bit in Europe. That didn't go to. He played in the top Greek league, which is a pretty advanced league, and clearly he wasn't really up for that. Played a little bit in the G League, and then he quit playing pro basketball to come back to Syracuse and begin his coaching career, first as a grad assistant, then as an assistant coach, eventually as the associate head coach at Syracuse. And in 2024, he was hired as the head coach at Siena. Siena was coming off a season where they had won just 4 games. They'd gone 4-28 in the 2023-24 season before he arrived. 4-28. There are 362 teams in Division I basketball. They were 357th. Siena was a program that was just in woeful, terrible shape. And Gerry McNamara has righted that ship very damn quickly. The next season, they went 14-18. This season, they go 20, like you said, 23-11. They've made the NCAAs. They're currently 192nd in KenPom. You can see why the folks at Syracuse are like, we need a new coach. We got a dude whose jersey's been retired. He's been coaching for a couple of years, and he has taken a program that was in terrible shape and gotten them, into fairly good shape. You can see why he is a top candidate. And I suspect within probably days of of Siena's season ending, you'll probably my bet is that Gerry McNamara's agent is already talking to Syracuse, and it's just time to dot the I's, cross the T's, and sign on the dotted line. So I suspect that we're going to see the first dose of what may be many, many doses of Gerry McNamara over the next few years.
And he gets the first shot at Duke, not just in this tournament, but of course, one of many that he'll probably see as a head coach in the ACC should Syracuse indeed hire him after the season is done. Jason, just to wrap this up and to get you into the metrics, Siena is ranked 192nd in KenPom. They're ranked higher in Evan Mia, 163, and in Bart Torvik, they're in 186. So this is the team, again, finished third in their conference, but still was good enough to outlast a couple of teams on their way to the MAAC championship and to book their place here. So as we get into the metrics, talk about this team. And Jason, I will lead you with this. I watched a lot of tape on this team today, and some people would call it boring because they play super, super slow.
Oh, yeah. One of the 25 slowest teams in all of college basketball on offense, one of the 50 slowest teams in all of college basketball on defense. They're trying to lull you to sleep, I think. They're just playing solid fundamental basketball, both on offense and defense, and sort of being like, we're just waiting here. You're going to make a mistake at some point, and we'll try and take advantage of it. Donald, it's tough to look at the metrics on them because the absolute metrics, things like, rebounding percentage, block shot percentages, all those kind of things, they don't really apply as well in this case because of the quality of their competition. We talked about the fact that they've played one of the weakest schedules in all of college basketball, that other than that one Indiana game, they just haven't faced a team even in the zip code of what a team like Duke would be. And that Indiana game, it's worth mentioning, they absolutely got blitzed out of the gate. Like Indiana came out, outscored them 18-3 in the first 6-7 minutes of that contest. It was never that competitive. It was at Indiana. It's early in the year. I don't want to draw too many conclusions from that, but basically the only time that they played a team that is even moderately comparable to Duke, they got, as I said, absolutely, it was just a non-competitive game throughout. All right, so let's get a little bit to what we can hopefully figure out from some of the metrics and things like that, although, again, not playing against teams the caliber of the Blue Devils. Good free throw shooting team. That's something that doesn't matter who your opponent is. The Siena clubs hits almost 77% from the free throw line. But interestingly, most teams that shoot really, really well from the free throw line are good at the three-point line. That's not the case here with Siena. They only hit about 30%, barely 30% of their three-point field goals, and they have a very low three-point field goal rate. Donald, Siena is not a team. There are a lot of teams in the tournament. A lot of these, upstarts, mid-majors, small majors, whatever you want to call them, who are like, hey, I got a shooter's chance here. I'm going to bomb away from three. Maybe good things will happen. Remember Oakland did that. We've seen all kinds of teams over the years, like, we're just going to take a ton of threes. That is not their style at Siena. Less than 32% of their field goals come from three-point range. That's among the 30 lowest three-point field goal rate in all the country. They're just an average rebounding team. I did notice watching the tape, they run a lot of horns sets. If you're not familiar with the horn set, it's where you bring both your big men up from the post. They don't stay down close to the basket. They come up to like the foul line or so. Typically it's with all four, you've got the point guard and then all four guys kind of lined up, foul line extended, so to speak. And they do they use those bigs at the foul line and the such to do a lot of handoffs, a lot of screens with their big men in hopes of creating some space for the guards, because they've got, and when we talk about the players, I'll talk about these guys. They've got two guards that they really want to try and get downhill, going toward the basket, going one-on-one, hopefully. They want to create just a little tiny bit of space for those guards to get off mid to short range kind of jumpers. Frankly, there's not a lot of post scoring that happens from this Siena team, unless it's like off a rebound and that kind of thing. Let's get now to their defense really quickly. They do a really nice job, Siena does, of contesting shots. They play smart defense. They're not going to block a lot of shots. This is not a team that has elite rim protection, but they're going to keep you in front of them. They're going to get a hand up. And as a result, they've got a pretty good, like, 2-point field goal defense. Top 50 in the land in terms of, field goal percentage defense. They do a nice job of not fouling. Really nice job of not fouling. They don't put teams in the free throw line. Top 25 in the country at defensive free throw rate. They mostly play man-to-man. They will sometimes play zone, which obviously, is a little bit of a nod to Gerry McNamara's career at Syracuse, where he played for Jim Boeheim. He then coached with Jim Boeheim. He certainly knows how to play zone, and I won't be entirely shocked if they try and roll out a zone a little bit against Duke. I think trying to match up with Duke one-on-one is going to be really difficult. Zone may be one of the ways they try and combat Cam Boozer, because I'm not sure I see anybody on this roster who is a good matchup to play Cam one-on-one. I think Cam's probably going to be a little pissed off after the game he had against Virginia, arguably his worst game of the season. So I suspect you may see Siena at least experiment a little bit with trying some zone.
So I think the other thing about going back to their offense, I think one of the things that I saw on tape is that you mentioned how slow they are. They're one of the bottom 20 teams in terms of offensive tempo. Every single time you mention the horn set that they kind of do and they do a lot of passing around to try and find the perfect shot, it feels like. Because if they don't have the perfect shot, they're just going to keep trying to work the ball until they find an angle for them to go.
Patience, Donald. Patience is like the key word with this team.
Well, I wasn't going to say patience. I was going to say the end result of that is that they get a lot of shot clock violations, because there are times where they hold onto the ball too long and they're trying to take a shot with 1 second left on the shot clock. And if they don't get the shot off or it doesn't hit the rim, the games that I watch, they get a lot of shot clock violations, more than the average Bear. So that's something to think about, especially considering Duke's defense wants you to pass the ball around and try and find an angle, because they're not going to give you an angle until very, very late in the shot clock. And they want you to make a terrible pass or a terrible shot with 1 second left, because that helps us go the other way.
Donald, you may have seen them have a lot of shot clock violations, but they're actually really good at like what's referred to as non-steal turnovers. Mm-hmm. Turnovers get broken down by Ken Pomeroy into regular turnovers, like steals, and then non-steal turnovers, things like traveling violations or things like shot clock violations. They've got one of the 25 best non-steal turnover percentages on offense around. So I think what ends up happening is you may have seen some shot clock violations, but for the most part, I think they just end up taking a bad shot if that shot clock is almost burned.
Yeah, and I will say they don't throw the ball away a lot. Once or twice. It's the shot clock violations are probably 85% of that non-steal turnover portion there. But yeah, to your point, they really do take care of the basketball and are patient at times, trying to work and find their shot. Let's take a quick break. We're going to split this up. On the other side, we're going to talk about the players. There's some key players that have been missing over the last couple of games. We'll talk about that, and then also what to watch for in this game as we get ready for the first round of the NCAA Tournament. DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook for live betting, is built for March. The tournament is unexpected. Rewards are guaranteed. DraftKings Sportsbook is delivering the most generous rewards on the market.
Yeah, with DraftKings, the number one sportsbook for live betting, you're not betting on what might happen. You're betting on what's happening right now. Are you new to DraftKings? Bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly.
Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code DukeBB. That's code DukeBB to turn $5 into $200 in bonus bets instantly. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
Start your day with Quaker Protein Instant Oatmeal. The instant oatmeal ready to help you tackle whatever your day brings. Like wrangling your toddler into their car seat. That was fun. Coaching your 6th graders soccer team. Go girls! And carrying all the groceries in one trip. Whew. Try Quaker Protein Instant Oatmeal, granola, and bars. Great taste and a good source of protein. Quaker, bring out the good.
Instagram teen accounts have automatic protections for what teens see and who can contact them, plus time management tools. And Instagram will continue adding built-in safety features to help create age-appropriate experiences. Learn more about teen accounts and Instagram's ongoing work to protect teens online at instagram.com/teen accounts.
Baseball is back, and the first pitch is on Netflix. The New York Yankees, led by 7-time All-Star Aaron Judge, head to the San Francisco Bay to take on Rafael Devers' San Francisco Giants. This season kicks off with one exclusive opening night game. Watch MLB Opening Night, the New York Yankees versus the San Francisco Giants, live on Netflix. Wednesday, March 25th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, we are back. We turn our attention from the metrics to the players on the Siena Saints. And Jason, I'll turn it back to you. Start with Gavin Doty, because he's a guy that is very fun to watch at times. Sometimes a little bit weird with his shot, but it feels like he is the leader of their team on offense. Oh,
there's no question about it. Gavin Doty is all MAAC, and when I say MAAC, I mean MAAC. All Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference first team. He was a unanimous selection for the first team, and he's been named as one of the 20 finalists for the Mid-Major Player of the Year. He does everything for them on offense. Averages almost 17.9, almost 18 points per game. Grabs 7 rebounds per game, even though he's only 6'5", and he's not like a burly guy. Like, I think he's 190 pounds or so. And frankly, looks like he's 12. Like, he does not look like an older dude. Unafraid to mix it up on the inside, though. I mentioned the 7 rebounds per game. He averages nearly 37 minutes per game. He is an outstanding, excellent free throw shooter, better than 85%. But he's just a so-so three-point shooter at 33%. He mostly likes to put the ball on the floor, get to where he can take a short to mid-range kind of jumper. He's going to put like 8 fakes on you. By the way, like, if you watch this guy, like every time before he shoots, it's like 2 or 3 pump fakes. He's going to spin twice, just doing everything he can to deke you into making a mistake and making his shot a little bit easier. Very solid handle. Does not turn the ball. I mean, I was really impressed. When I watched him, I'm like, oh, this is a turn. I'm like, nope, not a turner. Dude does not turn the ball over much at all. His backcourt mate The other guy that I feel like they rely on to sort of create their own shot is Justice Schultz. He was all MAAC second team. He is just 5'11". He's their point guard. He also plays 35 plus minutes per game. These two guys are probably going to be in this game really close to all 40 minutes. Justice Schultz averages better than 13 points per game. He leads the team in assists, about 4.5 assists per game, also leads them in steals. He's really not a shooter, at least not from long range. He takes just barely a little tiny bit more than 1 3-point field goal per game, hits them about 35%, so he's not a terrible percentage from out there, but he's just not going to shoot a lot of them. He is looking to get downhill against you. He's looking to try and create a little bit of space and get a mid-range jumper. Not a very good free throw shooter either. For a point guard, just 67% from the free throw line. They have one guy on their team, Donald, who I think is a threat to go off from outside. That is 6'7" wing Brendan Coyle. He has taken 228 threes on the year, almost 7 3-pointers per game. Now his percentage is terrible. Dude's hitting like 29, less than 30% from the 3-point line. But do not let that fool you. He is better than that. Last year, this dude hit close to 40% of his threes. I'm convinced that he's still firing them up this year because he knows he's good enough. This is a guy who's probably a 38 or so percent 3-point field goal shooter, and somehow this season he has just had a really bad year. I do not want to see a game where he has a reversion to the mean kind of thing against Duke, where he suddenly hits 6 out of 8 3-pointers or something. But don't be fooled into thinking he's not capable, because he is. But he only averages about 8.5 points per game, and really he takes very few shots that aren't 3-pointers. Brendan Coyle is staying outside, and when Justice Schultz and Gavin Doty start to drive to the basket and the defense collapses, they're looking for Brendan Coyle to take 3-pointers for them. Donald, like most small schools, the key question for Siena is, so who matches up with Cameron Boozer? The answer is probably it's a freshman by the name of Francis Folafak. I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name. It's an interesting last name. Folafak? We'll go with Folafak. Sounds good to me. 6'7", 245 pounds. My man's not skipping a lot of meals. He is a big man on the inside, averages about 11 points per game, 5 rebounds per game. He's their top shot blocker, though he only blocks, about 1 shot per game. Pretty good leaper, has nice explosion off the floor. I saw a number of vicious dunks that this guy lays on people. Not super skilled. He's not going to take you outside. He's not going to shoot threes. He's not going to handle the ball, but he's got a lot of beef, and he's going to use that beef to bang. And it's also worth noting that Folafak played AAU ball with Team Mello, which is one of the top AAU teams out there. He also played high school ball at Mount Zion in Maryland, which is like a top 25, top 30 program in the nation. This is a guy who's played against some really good competition. My bet is I'm sure he's played against the Boozer brothers before. I'm not saying that that they're friends, they know each other really well, but this is a guy who probably knows what it's like to play against the kind of caliber guys that Duke has, because he played top tier AAU and high school ball. Last guy I want to mention, and I'm going to mention 2 guys with this. So their center for most of the year had been Antonio Chandler. He's only 6'6", but he was really their man in the middle. Antonio Chandler's in his 7th year of college basketball. He played like 4 years of NAIA ball and then a couple years at a Division II school. He got injured. He got a COVID year, all this other kind of stuff. Dude came into college in 2019. That was his first season. Like, he was a freshman alongside Vernon Carey. Unbelievable to me that this guy's still around college basketball. Very burly. He averages like only about 7.5 points per game, 5.5 rebounds per game, but he takes up space on the inside. But he's missed like 5 or 6 games in a row for them because of some unspecified eligibility issue. They haven't clarified exactly what it is. I'm not going to say it's necessarily academics, but it's something that the NCAA has been looking at. And as a result, Antonio Chandler didn't play in the MAAC tournament and hasn't played lately. And there's no word as to whether he's going to return to playing against Duke. I kind of suspect that he may not be eligible in time to play against the Blue Devils. And as a result, they have a 7-foot senior on their bench little used guy named Riley Mulvey, and he's moved into the starting lineup lately. He's a senior. He played at Iowa for 3 years, but he barely got off the bench at Iowa, like playing in like a dozen games or so, like 5-6 minutes per game, basically only playing in blowouts, that kind of stuff. But he moved over to Siena. He's been playing more at Siena, and with Chandler out, Riley Mulvey played 40 minutes per game in the past couple games for them. Like, he is playing big minutes, and he is a 7-footer. He's not a guy who's going to block your shot a lot, but over the past several games, he's averaging like close to 10 rebounds per game. He's doing a pretty nice job of taking up some space on the inside for them. I think he's probably a very, very poor matchup with the more athletic big men that Duke has, but he's at least a little bit of size that they can put in there to maybe cause some problems. And I mentioned they lost Antonio Chandler. They had another big man earlier in the year who got injured back in December. He's out for the year. They really only have like 6 or 7 guys that they're playing at this point. In fact, in the MAAC championship game, their 5 starters played 40 minutes, 38, 38, 38, and they had one bench guy play 6 minutes. So we think Duke is shallow at this point. Siena may be one of the few teams in the country who have even less of a bench, who are relying on their starters even more than the Duke Blue Devils are.
And you know what's interesting about that, Jason, is that when it comes to 2 foul participation, which is obviously the metric where if someone gets 2 fouls, does your coach keep you in the game? The answer is no. Gerry McNamara puts them on the bench. And so what they have been doing very well lately, which is what's helped them, is not fouling. Not fouling, because they can play 5 guys close to 40 minutes each. Also on Riley Mulvey, the games that I saw, like you said, he's not a shot blocker, but don't let that fool you. He can block shots. He will go after a couple, especially guys that go into the paint. And so he's not a guy that's, like you mentioned, he was getting a lot of rebounds by just being kind of the tall guy on the floor in the MAAC. But it's going to be a nice challenge to see him go up against Boozer in the post. Now, as I shift to the things to watch, Jason, before I get to that list, there is one thing to watch for. Will Pat Ngongba play? We have not heard whether he's ready. By all accounts, he is on pace to be ready for the NCAA tournament. Whether that's the first round is the question. And we had this question last year when Cooper Flagg was out and missed, all but the first, 5 or 6 minutes of the ACC tournament. Everyone was like, oh, well, you just hold him out against the 16 seed, and then, you bring him back for the second round. Jon Scheyer didn't see it that way. Jon Scheyer sees this game as, hey, I have to win this to get to the second round, so I want to have a full string squad entering this first round. Cooper Flagg played last year in that first game. He didn't play. I don't think he played like heavy minutes, if I remember correctly, but he did get in there and scrapped around. I think he played 20 minutes or something like that, which is less than what he was normally used to playing. But I think when it comes to Pat Ngongba, if he is ready to go, if there is no pain in that foot, they will put him out there. They will start him and they will play him. And we will be back to 8 guys getting a lot of time out there.
Yeah, really quick. So I went and I looked up the game we played against Mount St. Mary's last year. Mm-hmm. And you're
also
correct,
from the
Cooper
MAAC.
Flagg. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You're correct that Cooper Flagg played 22 minutes in that game. But it's worth noting that Duke played 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys between 11 and 24 minutes. It was, final score was 93-49. It was a non-competitive game. Mm-hmm. And Duke was spreading the minutes around a lot of different guys. But I think you're probably right. I think there's a possibility Big Pat plays in this game, but probably coming off the bench, and they probably are trying to limit his minutes if he plays. I think there's a fairly decent chance that he doesn't play at all and that Duke waits until the game against probably Ohio State or TCU to really have Pat back in there in major minutes.
I think that the question will be, is his foot ready to go? I don't think he will put him on the floor if he is anything less than 100% ready to go for this game. Sure, a later round, that's when you ask Pat to be a gamer maybe, but if he's not 100%, I wouldn't expect him out there. He'll dress, he'll do all the warm-up stuff, and I'm sure they'll test to see if he's ready to go and make the determination right there on the floor in Greenville, South Carolina. The things that I have to watch, the first thing, Jason, you kind of alluded to it. This team does not shoot a lot of threes. and the guys who do shoot threes aren't great at them, save for maybe, one guy having a game here and there. Controlling the paint is the key here. And because they like to get their points in the paint, we have been great at controlling the paint over the last couple of months. That is the thing that I think is going to be the test here is, can we, with 6 guys, 7 guys, control the paint and keep them out of it? Because one thing that they do is if they're not getting to the rack, they're shooting mid-range jumpers, as you mentioned. So that you have this ability to kind of push them back out of the lane to that little area that metrics say is stupid for you to take a shot, and have them take stupid shots all night long. We have the length to push them out and do that, but it's about controlling that paint first and foremost. I think when it comes to interior defense, they, like you said, they have a couple guys that are going to get to the rack. One thing you don't want to do in these sort of games is to let teams get momentum by sending your big guys to the bench. The first thing they're probably going to do is try to go right at Cameron Bruiser to try and see if they can take him out of the game with 2 fouls and kind of, in their minds, level the playing field somewhat. This is, and get some momentum on their side. If we can stay clean and keep out of foul trouble, I think that goes a long way to helping our rotation, because I feel like now that we've had a week with this 7-man rotation, even adding Pat to the mix, everyone knows the roles, everyone knows their responsibilities, and everyone knows how to act. One thing you don't want to do is put that into a shift because somebody goes to the bench with 2 fouls early on. The third thing that I have is, you also mentioned that this team does not shoot threes well. Well, just because they don't hit threes well normally, don't expect that to happen in the NCAA tournament. These, again, magical moments happen. Somebody could go off in this game, and we should not be surprised by that. We should be ready for it, and we should be able to react to it. I think, this is how mid-majors end up beating teams, and we've been a victim to that in the past. I'm not saying out there, guys, I'm not putting a jinx or a pox or anything like that. I expect the unexpected in the NCAA tournament, and we all should be expecting the same thing.
Yeah, I would say, to me, one of the things to watch, I really am going to be intrigued to see how Duke deploys Dame Sarr, because there's a piece of me that thinks, we've been so successful with putting him on the primary creator for the other team, which would, the point guard, which would be Justice Shotes. But I think Duke's going to put him on Gavin Doty, because Doty's their offense. And even though he doesn't have the assist rate that Justice Shotes does, I feel like Gavin Doty hasn't seen anything like the 6'8", 6'9" with arms that go on all day that you get from Dame Sarr. I think if you take Doty out of his game, I don't know where Siena goes for offense. It's just a huge problem for them at that point. And I feel like Justice Shotes, who I mentioned is only 5'11", only weighs 180 pounds. I feel like Caden Boozer is going to be able to push him around a little bit. It's not surprising, with a team like Siena that is not rated in the top half of all teams in college basketball, a team that, as we mentioned, can barely beat quad 3 teams, that a quad 1A team like Duke, that arguably has the most talented roster in the sport, that you look around at the matchups and you go, I really like all these individual matchups. There is just like one that I'm not like, well, that works out really well for Duke. So yeah. And I want us to take advantage of those matchups early on. I need to see Caden attacking the basket the way he was against Virginia. I need to see Duke creating space and creating open 3-pointers for Isaiah and all these other guys. It is entirely possible that you can bury this Siena team early, as Indiana did, and not have to worry too much, about whether Pat plays and how many minutes guys are getting and things like that.
I was going to say with the who guards Shotes, I agree that it should be our smallest guy, even if our smallest guy is 5 inches taller than him. That's something that you should do. This team is, again, outside of Mulvey at 7 foot, they don't have a lot of size. And so you put Dame on Doty, who's 6'5", and again, he's going to have that reach and height length over him. He'll be able to kind of frustrate him, while I feel like Caden Boozer can go after a Justice Shotes, who, again, is smaller. And it's weird in a way. You don't ask your guy your best defender to go on somebody who's a foot shorter than him almost, right? Which is what Schultz would be compared to Dame Sarr. Jason, I think a couple more things I have. One, move the ball around. This team during the season that was actually pretty decent at keeping teams from moving, getting shots via the assist. But I think with our height advantage, we're going to have the ability to pass over them, right? And the great thing is our guards are great passers. Our big men are elite passers. And so I feel like if we take care of the basketball but move it around, we're going to be able to stretch, especially when they play zone. We're going to be able to stretch them thin because they're not going to have the size to match us, and we'll be able to pass over them, but also we'll be able to get our shots over them as well. So I'm looking to see how they're able to do that. And then finally, you kind of said it with your matchups. Do we got you here, right? This is the NCAA tournament. There's no need to change up what we're doing when it comes to Siena or anyone else, right? Sure, you make adjustments based on your opponent, but Caden, if you're going to drive to the lane and get those hard ones, go get them. Like, Cameron Boozer, do your thing. Slim, you see that open three? Take it. Nick Haminier, you're going to see a ball on the ground and you want to hustle after it? Please do. Rug burns, floor burns are welcome in the NCAA tournament just as they are during the regular season. So I want to see these guys enter this tournament with a chip on their shoulder, right? You could say what you want about the road that was laid before them, but now that's the road that they have to travel. And so let's travel it well. Let's do our thing, and hopefully we're coming back on Thursday night, Jason, and we're talking about a victory as we move on, but we have to play the basketball first. That will do it for this episode of DBR Bites. We will be back at some point after the Siena game. Again, that game, Thursday afternoon, around 2:50 Eastern Time on CBS. So for Jason, I'm Donald. This is the Duke Band. They're playing us out, and they're taking us to Greenville.
I'm RJ Decker, a private investigator, uncovering the Sunshine State's darkest secrets.
Tuesdays, it's the premiere of ABC's hottest new crime show.
RJ freaking Decker has that live and breathe.
He's a private eye.
It's not a standard murder, it's something bigger.
And a public mess.
Trying to get sent back to prison today?
You go to prison one time and suddenly it's all the jokes.
RJ Decker, series premiere, Tuesdays on ABC and stream on Hulu.